As of around 20 minutes ago, a strike on the London Underground has begun.
In 3 words, can you tell me in 3 words what did you think about the film tonight?
In 3 words?
Yes.
Eye-opening, that's 1 word, right? And colourful and inspirational. Oh wow, in 3 words.
Yeah, 3 words, yeah.
Yeah, pretty damn good.
Experimental, punk, and yeah, exciting in a way. Like, it's good to know that like people are doing stuff like that and things. I don't know.
Provoking. Controversial. Interesting.
Coming from Hackney, and you know, Hackney's a place full of like anarchists and like it's just good to see some film work like that. Yeah. Really good. Yeah, and in such a great venue as well. I think that the interviews it was just really interesting. Like, a very broad set of characters were shown, and they all had a lot of interesting things to say.
I like the diversity of the people that were being interviewed for taking part in it, because they all came from completely different places and had opposing views, and that made for a really good discussion, I thought, rather than all agreeing with each other.
Speaking about why they kind of do it, because it's kind of like, yeah, it kind of speaks to all of us in that way. Like, it's why we want to come to screenings like this. It's why we want to like put on events like this. It's like that whole thing of like just wanting to share it with people and like have that common experience, and like, yeah, and especially like the ethos of people then, like, especially people like this being like, just go out and make it, because so often it's like, I mean, I've been in like a few like failed film groups where it's like we've never actually like got to making anything, so we just choked. So yeah, it's like really good to sort of like hear them speaking about how they just fucking got out there and like did it.
Do you have any message for the director, because you're going to see this video?
Okay. Well, thank you so much, and please keep doing it, and I'm expecting to see you go mainstream soon. Keep carrying on doing it. Just carry on doing it.
Do you have any message for the director, because he's going to see this video?
Well, I'm also from the north of England. I'm from North Derbyshire. I'm from Chesterfield. I always say I'm from Sheffield. And what the fuck can we do for the north of England? Because it's like, yeah, like, I'm from Chesterfield in North Derbyshire, and like, yeah, like, the closest we have to anything like this is kind of like the Showroom Cinema in Sheffield. Well, that's all I know about. And obviously there's Dogfest and stuff like that, but Dogfest is fucking expensive.
Everybody falls out, and you're not meant to be in a collective, and that's sort of reflected that way of working, exactly, which is brilliant.
What can we do for the north?
We have a Bowie night tomorrow night, because it's 1 year anniversary tomorrow since Bowie died, and we remember that well from last year, because we were doing an event with Clive Shaw, who I can see somewhere in the room, and then this weekend we're doing some stuff around Riot Girl. We have Anna De Silva from the Raincoats performing live at the ICA, alongside some short films about Riot Girl and about that whole scene, and anyone that's interested in fashion. There's a big fashion event on Sunday at the ICA as well, with live projections and fashion films. Tonight's event is the New Underground Cinema, and following the film that you're about to see, the documentary about the New Underground Cinema, there'll be a panel on stage which will be consisting of a number of people from the New Underground Cinema and the Old Underground Cinema. We have representatives from Exploding Cinema, Kino London, and the filmmaker will be here, and Final Girls, and it will be hosted by Kate Taylor, who was the co-founder, along with me, of the London Short Film Festival back in 2004. But without further ado, I think we're ready for Anarchy in the UK, the New Underground Cinema.
We have the filmmaker Taylor, who otherwise known as the Black Girl.
Let him tell you.
Get it right.
I'm going to get this wrong as well. And Anna Bogutskaya, who is the creator of The Final Girls and producer of Underwire, among lots of other things. And on stage with them will be Kate Taylor, who is actually the co-founder of the London Short Film Festival and works for the London Film Festival at the moment. Okay.
All right. So, first things first. Please, can everyone stand up? Everyone, go on. Up. Okay, you guys too. Come on. Now, it's actually a special day because it's also Duncan's birthday, so we're all going to sing Happy Birthday to him. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Duncan and Ben. Happy birthday to you. So, this is happening without your permission. It's the rallying cry of this year's London Short Film Festival. So I would like our panellists maybe to briefly introduce what it is that you do, and also in particular how this phrase applies to you or what it means to you. So Laura of Kino London, maybe you can start.
Sure. So Kino's have been going for the last 8 years in London. And we essentially show anything under 6 minutes long, as long as the filmmaker is there to present it. So it's a completely non-competitive, open platform. The whole idea is to reject the idea of curation and the idea of anybody choosing or deciding what is good or bad. So I suppose we are there without your permission. Even the people putting on the screening have absolutely no idea what the films are going to be until they appear on the screen, which has sometimes come back to bite us, but not that often. Yeah, I guess that's how it applies to us.
Cool.
I'm a long-time member of the Exploding Cinema Collective, which does the same thing as what Laura just said, but we've been doing it for 25 years now. Yes, and we're doing it without your permission. I guess that refers, in our case, that would refer to the state funding agencies and the establishment and the art academies.
I'm just going to keep going with that. Does that mean that you asked them for permission and they said no, or did you not ask them in the first place?
Hi, I'm Fab. I'm the filmmaker. Did you enjoy it then? Yeah, you liked it? Yeah. Good. I hope it inspired you. I hope you all go out there and cause havoc. You know, I know you've got it in you. So yeah, I'll speak to you in a bit.
What's the phrase mean to you?
What, underground?
This is happening without your permission.
Well, it's good, isn't it? I like not asking permission.
Awesome. All right. Okay, Anna. Oh, extra one.
Yeah, I've got it all to myself. Good. I'm Anna, one half of The Final Girls. We're a screening series, usually London-based. Sometimes we also try to do things outside of London. And we operate in a niche within a niche, so we put on screenings that explore the intersections of genre filmmaking, horror films, and feminism. So we reinterpret established horror films through a feminism prism, and also trying to champion women who are making horror films or making films that kind of explore the darker side of cinema as well. And the phrase, this is happening without your permission, I guess my first went to horror films because I started watching them way too early on VHS in my grandma's living room without anybody knowing that I was watching that, and then having nightmares for months on end. So I guess that was happening without anybody's permission, and it continued on to this.
And you've turned out really well, so
I guess.
So it's all good. Okay, right. Well, Fabrizio, maybe we should start with you. And one of the things I thought was exciting about the film is that it's quite UK-wide. So I'm interested in when you were starting to put it together and you were looking at, alternative exhibition scenes across the country. How did you decide who it was that you were going to interview?
It just came at a really good time because I've been making films for a few years, so I kind of like knew the people that I wanted to interview, and I knew the people that were going to make a difference in cinema, and kind of had that energy I was looking for. You know, like that, you keep hearing about punk, you know, and it's very much alive. I mean, you hear about. I mean, last year was Punk London, wasn't it? And it was talking about 1976 and da 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 da. I mean, it's still going on, which kind of, you know, it kind of gets on my nerves about places like BFI and Sight and Sound. They always talk about punk in the past tense. I mean, it's still going on very strong right now, you know, and this, you know, the film kind of proves it. I mean, last year, 2016 was such a mess of a year. Filmmakers in here want to get on it and, you know, be a part of that, do it now, you know. I mean, it's that energy is really much in the air. It only ever comes when, like, the economy's like in a fucking bin, basically, which is what it is now, you know. So turmoil kind of creates creativity, you know.
But is going mainstream something that you want? I mean, a lot of the film is very. It has, you know, a flavour of opposition. It has it aligns kind of independent exhibition with like direct action in a lot of it. Is mainstream the ambition, or is it to have a kind of parallel strength in the undergrounds?
Yeah, I want everyone to watch my films. I want everyone to watch underground films. You know, that's what I don't like, is underground films are for, you know, teenagers. I mean, I got into underground movies when I was a teenager as well. So it's not just for like 20 and 30-year-olds that are kind of cultured, you know. It's good to get into this type of stuff when you're a teenager and it kind of blows your mind. I mean, I remember seeing Easy Rider when I was like 12. I was like, fucking hell, you know, I mean, this is like real cinema right here. So, you know, I'm not going to make Disney films or, you know, things like that, but I want everybody to see this type of, you know, energy and cinema that's going on.
And when you were kind of constructing the film, how did you like plot out the journey of it? The kind of like, you had all of the different interviews. What was your like method or your own set of rules when you were like putting the film together?
It all started at Dismaland, funny enough. I went to Dismaland and I saw Pussy Riot perform, and later that day I met some guys that were kind of showing films in Bristol. So I just started to write there, and then, you know, I always kind of like jump into it. I don't really plan things too much, you know. It's, I mean, I knew Duncan and, you know, you guys, and that was great. But a lot of the time, I just, you know, you don't plan too much. You kind of jump into it and just see where it goes, like improvising type of thing. Like a lot of the movies are improvised, as you can tell. So you just take it from there, really. And I travelled all across the UK. I went to Scotland, Liverpool, Bristol, London. I mean, things aren't just happening in London, which I hope you guys realise, you know, things happen all over the UK. And, you know, you can tour the films all over the UK. You know, you just have to stay in London, and you can blow minds way up north, because the movies that we get up there are really shit, you know. I mean, you guys are so lucky. I mean, I live in Nottingham, and you guys are so lucky that you got all these really cool cinemas and places like Exploding Cinema and Kino and places like that, you know. So yeah, make the most of it, you know, make a splash.
All right. Well, Laura, maybe this is a good time to bring you in terms of Kino has like an international dimension in terms of there's like. Like a cell-based structure kind of around the planet. Can you talk a bit about how that started and how that fed into the birth of Kino London?
So Kino started in 1999 in Montreal with a group of filmmakers who thought the world would end at the turn of millennium and decided to make a film a month until the world ended, and then the world didn't end. And they thought actually making a film a month was quite good, so they carried on. And so Kino was born. It started in Montreal and spread to cells kind of globally. So it's a really, really strong movement all over the world now. Kino London, as I said before, is only actually 8 years old, so it's one of the kind of youngest. And they do loads of exchanging. So there'll be people from Kino Montreal exchanging with people in Kino Paris who will do cabarets together. So they'll send a cohort of filmmakers over from Montreal to spend a week in Paris making films with Parisian filmmakers and show that film back in Montreal and in Paris, and sort of a cultural exchange, I guess, that exists all over the world.
And can you talk a bit about the experience? If someone was coming to a Kino London for the first time, How does it work in terms of, you said it wasn't curated, what happens when you come through the doors? What do you see there?
Sure, so I guess if you're showing a film, so what we do is we ask people to sign up in advance. All you need to do is tell us the name of your film, the duration of it, and give us the file. I was telling Kate earlier, until really recently, we only accepted films on DVDs, which took us a really long time to realise was passé. But so you can now give us a file, and we just need to know the name of it and how long it is, and as long as it's under 6 minutes, that's great. You come along, you stand up on stage, we kind of randomly select when films are shown. You have to introduce your film, and you then get feedback and sort of sit down, and in the break you get the chance to discuss with other filmmakers. I guess as an audience member, you would just come along, you have the chance to liaise with other filmmakers in the break. That's one of the kind of unusual things we do, is we set up a challenge film every month. So the audience vote on the subject of a film, and whoever would like to take part can meet in the break, and then you make that film for the next month. So you could literally have no experience whatsoever, put your hand up and say, I'm interested in making a film, and by the next month be somebody who's starting to make films. So in that way, we're trying to sort of foster a community that's really, really open, non-judgmental, and totally inclusive.
Well, when I've attended other kind of kino sales, the one in Manchester, Filmonic, it's been really interesting with a group of filmmakers in the room who are all, to some extent, checking out the competition and a little bit like, oh, I can do better than that, and everyone leaves going, oh, I'm going to make one for next month because I can do better. But at the same time, they're also scoping for collaborators, and I'm interested, as it's a kind of filmmaker-run event, and you're a filmmaker as well, how does it feed back into your own practice, and do you see filmmakers developing month by month?
Yeah, I think it's been fascinating, and it's been even more exciting as a filmmaker to be able to be surrounded and in that environment and have the opportunity to work with people that you meet in that way. We've seen loads of filmmakers kind of come through the doors as first time or really experimental filmmakers who are just starting out, saying, oh, hi, I made this film and I really think it's quite bad, but okay, bye. And kind of by the end of that kino, they get so much support that they come back the next month and they'll make another film. And we had one filmmaker, Molly Brown, who really sort of thrived in that area, and since then she's been back every month, for years and years, and has gone on exchanges with other kinos, and I think that's been really, really amazing to be part of. And definitely for us as filmmakers, it kind of feeds into our own practice, where we feel like we have a community all around that you can kind of say, hey, I'm thinking of this new project, and it helps to kind of give birth to things that wouldn't otherwise be possible, I suppose.
And in terms of your kind of organisational structure, you've just been on a kind of hiatus. What's happening with Kino at the moment? What's happening next?
Yeah, so we've got a kind of new team of people who are going to be pushing it forwards in the next few years. We are about to relaunch in collaboration with a meetup group. So they're people who meet up every month to make films together, and they'll be taking it over and kind of joining forces, so it will become much more of a place that people can make films together, not just a monthly screening. I think that's really exciting for us.
Cool. All right. Well, Duncan, you mentioned before 25 years. So you're like the granddaddy of the film clubs, Exploding is. I'm interested in kind of the audiences first. Like, how do you replenish? How do you get kind of new people through the door? Do you see progressions or waves of audience members who are kind of like getting excited and learning about Exploding for the first time? Who's the audience who would come to a typical show?
Well, I think that goes back to sort of the origins of what we were doing. I mean, when we started out, there was a kind of a bifurcation which still sort of exists, which is you got like artists film and video, and then you got like narrative film and video. And at that time, the artists film and video was a sort of nasty clique of sort of church-based reverence for their amazing work, and they would sit in silence in these galleries watching silent films. And there was about 20 of them in London. could recognise them. And then on the other hand, there was like going to the mainstream cinema, which was like basically going to bed, because you went into a dark room and then the lights went out. You might as well be asleep for an hour and a half or 2 hours. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to sort of recreate a convivial space in which people were still living during the screening and still able to talk and drink and have a night out. And I think that was the secret of our success, was basically that people would come to the shows and instead of the film screening being a suspension of their lives. And that's still a problem. I mean, we were accused fairly recently of being incredibly disrespectful to filmmakers because we talk through the films. It was the membership. The audience were being really good. They were all kind of reverentially watching the film. But members of the collective, we were like talking through the films and people were getting annoyed at us. But then we don't give a fuck about that. I mean, because that's in the origins of the thing. It's like, you know, we were formed in opposition to that kind of reverence and that kind of, you know, that somnambulism where you're like in this dream state for 2 hours and then you come out.
Well, can I ask you a bit about organisation then? How have you remained sustainable? Because there's so many film clubs that have that burst of energy and maybe after a couple of years, I don't know, it dissipates somehow. How have you kept alive then? Have you kept it alive?
Well, I think in the first place, it's like a lot of that mainstream stuff. There's a lot of short filmmakers who are making calling card films. Where they make their little short film and then they use it to try and get a feature film. And we never did that. And we had filmmakers who don't do that. What they're interested in is actually in the short film form, and they're not interested in becoming sort of Odeon type filmmakers. So that's the first thing, and the second thing I've forgotten. So. What was? I can't remember. What's the question?
Organisation, yeah,
how do we keep going?
How do you keep going?
How do we keep going? I think we just really love it. We just really love it. I mean, we're a collective, so anyone can join our group and start doing it. So we have kind of replenished the membership over the years. There's been a lot of people involved. There's usually about sort of 6 or 7 or 8 sort of really active members, and then that's kind of replenished over the years. But I think everyone just really has a great time. I mean, we're slightly different from Kino in that we create an environment in which we project images all over the walls and ceilings. And so it's like walking into this massive sort of shifting image space. So that's quite different.
Okay, well, Anna, I mean, your Final Girls just started last year. So there was some talk in the film about people. One of the sparks that seemed apparent was people setting up things because they saw a gap, that they saw something was missing that was interesting to them. There was some kind of cinema that wasn't being represented. Can you talk about what sparked it? Why did you begin a film club last year?
Well, I remember exactly what it was. It was a WhatsApp conversation at 7 a.m. in the morning with the other final girl, Olivia, my friend who I co-run it with. And it was just a common occurrence, but I had been wanting to do something with horror film for a while, or, you know, this film's never been shown in the right way, in the right venue and whatnot, but it just never made sense, and I just figured out that I was the sort of person who needed to work in a partnership as well. So one morning we were chatting away, and all of a sudden the film, the name, the idea, the ethos clicked into place, literally in the span of a minute. And
which was the film?
It was Trouble Every Day. So our first screening was Claire Denise's Trouble Every Day. By some fortuitous click of the universe, we also managed to find a 35mm print, which was pristine of the film, which was unbelievably luscious to screen. And with all of our subsequent screenings, just so happens that a lot of people, more than half of the people in our audience, had never seen those films before. So that also was a huge driver for us. To recontextualize films, to bring films back from the dead, and to show them on the big screen to people who had never experienced them before. And also the other driver is that horror is best experienced in a collective environment. You kind of get this kind of contagious feeling. It's very visceral. You enjoy it more. Same as a comedy. If you hear people laughing in the cinema with you, you laugh kind of more because you feel like it's in a way allowed. If the other people around you are enjoying it that way, with horror it kind of goes to another level as well. So experiencing that, it's kind of taking it outside of your own living room or your own place where you watch all these dark, fucked up films by yourself and sharing them with people, and kind of in a non-judgmental scenario as well, was a huge driver. I guess that's it.
You also covered things you mentioned before, like recontextualizing or talking about films in a different way from a very political perspective with feminism. So why was, we all know why that's important, but why particularly did you think that was the moment? Because it seems like, sorry, I'm just going to talk for a bit more, but with the last year, with the emergence of film clubs, you've got things like the Vegetable Test Fest and Real Good Film Club, and you're starting to see an emergence of, emergence of film clubs that got this kind of feminist bent. Why do you think that's particularly in the air or exciting at the moment? Why was that exciting to you?
I guess there's a much bigger conversation going on, not just in the film industry. Obviously, that's where we're all passionate about, where we're involved, in some cases where our day jobs are as well. So you're constantly talking about it. And you are, but I am, Olivia, as we are women and working in the film industry, so that's our day-to-day life, and all those challenges and all those conversations with that buzz is constantly around us. But there's also, it was just a fuck it year, I guess, maybe. It was just a year where you said, you know what, I'm not going to sit around and let other people talk for me anymore, and I'm just going to do it myself in the way that I think it should be done. And maybe you're wrong, but why not give it a try? So that's also the part of the ethos that we had going in. And with horror film in particular, there was always that thing of it's a huge industry within a huge industry, and there's a huge community of people out there working in horror and kind of appreciating it and screening it and watching it all the time. But there was also this feeling that we shared and kind of got to know a lot of the women working specifically in horror as well, that shared as well the feeling that it was pretty much a boys' club, or it was treated as such, even though the audiences were mostly, all the time throughout history even, were always quite 50-50. So we just wanted to create that space as well, where it was okay for women to appreciate that sort of film, but also to appreciate it fully and without feeling like they were in a space where they're not being really welcomed.
Alright, good time to open up to the audience. Please do raise your hands if you have questions or indeed comments. Over there, sir.
Was Kino started as like a post-apocalyptic, like cinema cult thing?
Like pre-apocalyptic.
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 So were they all gonna like go Heaven's Gate and kill each other?
Yeah, it's like this is what will be left of the world. Like 12 films in honor of the millennium, but then it didn't happen.
Right. Okay. But forward running, you don't do any curation specific. You just kind of take what's given to you and run with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Exactly.
I have a question about the whole open access thing. Is it not possible, given that you'll show any film that you're given, that you're going to show a few real clunkers or clinkers or 20-minute bore fests of out of focus, black and white, sort of nightmare? No, this is for Kino as well. Or 6-minute nightmare. I'd like to ask both of you, is there not always the chance that your program's going to be full of really unwatchable, like terrible films as agreed on by the whole audience?
So the question is there not a danger that you're going to show some really unwatchable films?
Yeah, but if something can be a maximum of 6 minutes, that's only 6 minutes of pain. So, but I think to us it's really important that there is a platform for those kind of things, because those filmmakers also go on to learn and develop their own style, and other people learn from watching those films why they thought they were bad or not as bad as they thought they might be. So I think it's really important for us. I mean, we sometimes did have months where there would be many quite bad films, and we had other months where the quality was absolutely amazing. And I think that also, even seeing bad films inspired other people to think, I'm going to bring my film, because I think it is just as good as that. So yeah, it was a risk, but that was also part of the spice of it, I suppose. That's what kept it interesting.
I agree with what Laura's saying, but at the same time, the way we dealt with it was because we have sort of a cabaret set up to our tables and chairs, and everybody's talking. And so if they don't like the film, they don't have to watch it. They can go to the bar, or they can just talk through it, or they can just sort of heckle it and say how they don't like it. So, but it's very true that it's quite inspiring, I think. People see bad films because, then they think, my God, I could make such a better film than this. God. And then they go and make one. So that's really creative.
Okay, well, on the other end of the scale, I mean, there's a bit in the film where you're talking about like Jeff Keane as being a super important British underground filmmaker, and I wonder if you feel it's important to have an underground canon, like an alternative canon to the mainstream. If part of what you do is reclamation, is celebration of people that you think are underloved. Is that a key thing for you?
Not really. I mean, I've got 1-star reviews, constantly, and it kind of, I like getting 1-star reviews. I like people telling me that my movies are shit, because it means they're actually good. There's a bit, people said that punk music was shit when it came out, and now everyone's saying that how great it is. So it doesn't really matter what the reviewers really say about, if it exists. That's the crucial thing about this. It exists, and it's going to inspire people out there,
But I guess Duncan, there's an element of time will tell, and is it important to you to make sure that you're highlighting those people that you think time will tell, and like people, the critics are going to get it eventually, so it's important for me to make sure that it's documented? Or
it's very difficult. Because our slogan for many years was no stars, no funding, no taste, and we deliberately didn't promote people to the extent of all the members of the collective were anonymous at one point because we were so against any kind of selection. But I don't know. It is important that it's important that you recognise when there are fantastic filmmakers out there. But having a sort of canon, having that sort of the canon and the because I think that's a really big mistake, and it's something Jonas Meekes tried to do that. Various other people tried to do it. And once you've got the canon, then the canon goes into the art schools, and then the students get taught that these are the people you've got to aspire to.
And that's bad.
Yeah, I think it is bad. Yeah. But the thing is that now you've got the interweb. It's no longer even possible to sort of the canon's under attack, which is why the people who make the canon are being such sort of
stick in the muds.
Yeah, curation. Everyone's talking about curation. That's why, because they're scared.
Yeah. You're bringing into a dialogue with your screenings who aren't there ordinarily, or who aren't generally.
I hope we are, but you're mentioning about the no need for a canon, because a canon will always leave people out. There will always be people who fall through the cracks, and those are the people that find the films, the filmmakers that are most interesting. And I think that with our screenings in particular, we've had people come up to us in our events, and I call them events and screenings alternatively, because the thing that we also try to do is to also bring back a certain element of one-off-ishness to each one of these screenings. So it's not just put on a film and leave. We always try to create something of a dialogue around it, and one of the things we always do is create a zine for every single one of our screenings or events. So we always have a reason why we're showing the film, a reason why we think it's interesting. And sometimes we both, Olivia and I, have very different tastes and similar tastes at the same time in horror films, and have very different obsessions and kind of indulge ourselves in them sometimes, but we explain why they merit somebody else's attention. And sometimes people have come up to us and said, I would never have watched a horror film ever unless I knew you were going to do something around it, something extra, be it put on a party after a screening with some sort of glitter around it, or create that conversation element around it, like a silent discussion or something like that. The formats vary because they're very much driven by the film. So if we're putting on a short screening, we don't necessarily, a selection of shorts, we don't necessarily just want to do a straight up Q&A afterwards with the filmmakers. Maybe we find it more interesting to engage in a dialogue about what those films have in common, and bring in different types of people to talk about it. It varies, so I don't want to commit to a single format, but I'm rambling on right now.
No, it's cool, We're bringing context to films. Context,
dialogue, all those good things.
Yeah, they're all good, all ace. Right, audience, any more questions from you guys? Yeah, go on.
I want to pick up on what you just said, really, about not celebrities, but like extraordinary filmmakers. I'm making a film about a filmmaker who fell through the cracks, and you mentioned Jeff Keane earlier in the film, and YouTube, and he died sort of penniless, really, and his films were sort of beyond marginalised. He had to wait until he's dead. His family had to wait until he's dead. I know none of us want that. But there's surely a place for extraordinary people within it, to who aren't willing to be promoting themselves, to gain some kind of step above mediocrity. Because often it's not there. The guy I'm making a film about was a working chef because he couldn't make it. He didn't want to make money as a filmmaker, but the films were mad and incredible. But there has to be a platform. And maybe in Nottingham and stuff, talk about that, extending outside of London.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. I mean, a lot of these underground filmmakers kind of get recognition once they're dead. And, the same thing's probably going to happen to me. But, you kind of have to, you have to push on, you kind of have to...
They haven't all got your
Yeah, you gotta, don't worry about burning bridges or anything like that, I mean, this is happening. I mean, I wasn't expecting this a few years ago, so, it's on our side at the moment.
If they haven't got your levels of,
of coolness, is it? Yeah.
Either way, they're not going to have that platform, are they? They're not going to make a fit. How long is that film?
55 minutes, I think.
But, it was, in it, there was loads of people who, you've sliced and diced, and they were, they probably wouldn't get a platform, so well done you.
Oh, thanks.
But,
so the question's about responsibility to actually,
It's probably
but the music scene doesn't have a canon in the same way, does it? I mean, the music scene seems to work.
It has preferential treatment, doesn't it? In certain areas.
Yeah, but it has subcultures, and the subcultures are kind of function. They're autonomous, and they're self. They do finance themselves to a certain extent.
Okay, but they also, music has a whole critical body around it in terms of people writing about bands and gigs and things and music. So, do you feel that there's a healthy scene of people writing and thinking critically about the films that you screen?
No, there's nothing like that at the moment. That's what you got to fight for. Nobody in the mainstream really accepts these films. And it kind of makes it sexy in a way, but at the same time, they're missing out. There's a really big open market out there. I mean, for example, like the Velvet Underground, when they came out, how many people were into their albums? But the ones that were into their albums went out and started bands that became really influential. So they're really missing a trick. Like the bigger magazines and publications like that. They really need to cover this type of scene because it's going to get lost. And I really encourage people to go out there and make feature films instead of short films. Because in a way, I think it's a bit of a conspiracy theory where they want people to make underground films, short films instead of feature films, because in a way it could take over the mainstream in a way. If everyone went out there, and it's true, if everyone went out there and created a feature film on their mobile phone, it'd oversaturate the mainstream markets and you'd get this whole new set of cinema. But, go out and make short films,
Laura, how do you feel about that flood the market approach? Do you think that short films, considering that you have that strict rule of 6 minutes at a time, do you think that has is it restricting your filmmakers or?
I think, as Duncan was saying earlier, we've always felt like we wanted to celebrate the short film in its own right, and not as a stepping stone to something else. And of course, feature film has its own place, but for us, that was really important. So, I think we refused to show trailers, for example, for features, even if they were under 6 minutes, because we wanted that to be something about the art form for its own sake. So, yeah, I mean, I think that
you dig shorts. Shorts are cool.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, both, but for us, that was what we were trying to do. We were trying to kind of give a platform to films that were of that length and celebrate them for what they were.
All right, we have a final question. Oh, go on. We've got 2 questions. Okay, first of all, that gentleman in the middle, and then we'll have that gentleman. Go on.
So it started with the closure of the UK Film Council. And I kind of didn't really understand how that kind of followed through the rest of the film and drove the creative kind of juices that you wanted to focus on.
Yeah. So the question was, it started with the closure of the UK Film Council. You didn't understand why that particular moment and how did that flow through the
But
film.
also, what are the long-term implications of the closure of the UK Film Council?
And what are the long-term
It just created this spark, you know. I mean, you saw it. Riots were happening everywhere. It just, it just created this anger.
The Hackney riots had fuck all to do with the closure of the UK.
It was all the students that were involved, they just had enough, but, it just cut off. It kind of created an opportunity in a way. It created an opportunity that people go out there and make films for cheap. There was no excuse anymore. You didn't need to go out and get funding.
But we still had phones. I mean,
exactly.
Phones and cameras still existed.
Yeah, I know, but not all.
Pre-2010.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, kind of the end of 2010.
I know, but some people don't look at it like that. But some people think that they have to go out and get funding when you don't. It's kind of like, they go to university to study cinema, and it's kind of like, hammered into them. You've got to go out and get funding. I know it's a really simple idea, but a lot of people don't realise that. So it kind of created that open space. Yeah, the funding's dead. Let's go out there and make films on mobile phones. I know what you're saying. But it just created an opening, created a spark, created an energy in the whole of the UK, riots were happening. You saw those kids in there, they were pissed off, they were seriously pissed off. And that's what creates a mass movement, misrule cinema, or whatever people are calling it.
Do you think that's going to become the year that underground becomes mainstream?
It could do. I don't know what's going to happen, but it could do.
Let's riot.
Well, hopefully there's no more riots, it's just a waste of energy really, when they could go out there and make yeah, exactly, well, do whatever, it doesn't have to just be cinema, it can be anything, as long as you're doing it independently and getting it out there.
But you want the independent underground cinema to get more credit from the mainstream.
Well, yeah, exactly, didn't you just watch the film?
Yeah,
exactly.
I think something that came through really strongly in the film was that DIY ethos of don't hang about.
Yeah,
don't hang about
pure.
For anyone to put on your screenings, to start your film club, to
make your own cinema. You saw those kids. Cinema. They were making cinemas all across the UK.
Yeah, kids and older people too. Right, okay. That shouldn't have been
older people too.
I didn't mean to segue older people over to you.
The old person in the middle.
Philip, you have a question. Go on.
But it's that thing about obviously when we were doing Volcano back in the 90s, and obviously the Halloween Society is mentioned in the film, which was the thing that I did back then, and now I'm doing the London Short Film Festival. It's like with Anna doing Final Girls, which is a
yeah, it's about time, it's a good thing.
But it's this thing, is there an underground, or is it so back then we were very much them and us? And
it's mutated. The idea is still there, the idea to kind of... Well, it's a 24-hour type of world now, isn't it? It's so easy to get information out, isn't it? So, underground back then took 20 years, it took 20 years for a midnight movie to kind of catch on, type of thing. So, it's good for us, it moves a lot faster.
Well, I suppose one of the things in that film is that maybe it exists, but in quite a eclectic fashion. So you've got like Scalarama, you've got film clubs of people who are like dedicated cinephiles, you've got a little cinema in a small cinema rather in Liverpool, which you could connect to the Cube in Bristol, and Star and Shadow and Deptford Cinema. You've got those kind of community-based, volunteer-led cinemas. You've also got festivals like this. So I suppose the argument as to whether it's underground is, I think, fair enough. But then you've got like Lincoln Film Society, that in Lincoln it's the only place that you can, which was like 90% Brexit leave. It's like the only place that you can see international cinema because there isn't somewhere that's showing it. So it's kind of how you define your terms on what is underground and whether that's still a relevant phrase. And I think we should really get into that semantic argument this evening. But perhaps we should take it to the bar rather than doing it on the stage.